One of my fun stories about that made me smile about yoga. One of my good friends, I've seen her in a long time. She's one of the students that was around very early on when I was beginning as a student. She uh she was for a lot of years, for like 8 years, she was the PT for Circus Olay in Vegas. Okay, and so you can imagine the performers, the type of bodies they had, right? The things that they could do, and all these amazing um, gifts or whatever. But almost to a T, they all hated yoga, right? Which was really we'd talk about that, right? Like, what the heck is going on? And what Dina is her name, what Dina's opinion was is that although they were really flexible and did all these amazing things with their body, they were poses that they just couldn't do well. Like they'd get into a place and it just wouldn't quite go, they couldn't do it, right? They couldn't quite, they it just, and they'd get mad, right? Because they're used to being able to. And then they wouldn't feel stuff that Dina was saying, right? And instructing. And it's one of those extreme examples of um where just because you can get to a shape doesn't mean you're doing yoga, that there's a quality of sensation that occurs, a sense of direction, a gestalt feeling, a feeling of symmetry, a feeling of newness, a feeling, they're used to getting and achieving and being able to go fly through space, right? They're not used to like, no, you earn everything. Nothing comes fast. They didn't have the same kind of patience, which I always thought was really, really cool. The other story I've told before. So like I've got these signposts of stories that I keep in my mind about what yoga is and is not, and how it should make you live in the world. I think I told this story not too long ago in class, but I was thinking about it again. This weekend was when apparently BKS Angar's home was in a building right next to their studio in Pune. And there was a way that you'd walk to the studio or you'd go right by his TV room. And he had a black and white TV, and he watched, apparently his favorite show was The Honeymooners,
I love
right? This is just, can't make that up. Jackie Gleason and black and white. And apparently he'd watch it, and a couple days in a row, students would walk by and he'd be in the most god awful postures. Just out of alignment, just whatever, it's just ridiculous. And his students finally asked him, it was so outrageous. Like they just couldn't believe that that's how he would choose to sit. And they asked him, sir, what you teach about alignment and precision, but you don't, you sit in all sorts of amazingly inefficient ways, or whatever they phrased it. And his response was, no, you want all the spaces. You don't just want the spaces that the alignment that creates a yoga pose. You want all the spaces. You want to be out of alignment. You want to be in alignment. You want to be this. You want to be that. Like you want your body to have freedom, right? And the full arc of experience. You don't want, and I like that as another signpost I keep in my head about am I making my body go into a form? Could you do, and in a way, that story, not directly, set the foundation of, I spent a lot of years, one of the core sensations in our classes is balance. And I was, over the years, I've been teaching adaptive yoga overtly since 1997. And I would come across bodies that were wildly out of alignment, right? And they were never because of, let's say that we could just say cerebral palsy, but we caught a whole bunch of different things and, you know, different issues, and they were never going to get in alignment. They were never going to get coordinated movement, which usually we think is a requirement of balance. Their body was never going to be easy to move, right? So could they experience balance in a very unbalanced body? Right? And that's when you started to hear, that emerged out of our method was balance is a sensation, not an accomplishment, right? It's a feeling that occurs in the midst, because I would try to figure out how to have someone who was out of alignment and out of coordination still have something that my nervous system gets to in when I'm saying that I'm balanced and opposed on the outside. So we started to go, okay, so in my mind, I'd go, okay, I'm going to throw out coordinated movement. I'm going to throw out that it has to look outwardly graceful. What's the sensation of balance? And can I teach it to somebody who's out of alignment and out of balance? Is there a way to do it? So we developed all these kind of weird methods about it because the sensation of yoga or whatever, when something becomes yoga, is possible in every body position. Not always for the mind. The mind gets more worried about certain things, right? Oh my God, this is it. Oh my God, right? But think about your ability to be in a very chaotic environment. Right now, the thing that first popped in my mind was Target during Christmas, right? Where it's just nutty, right? And you're still able to be inwardly calm in the middle of it, right? Say your body is like going to Target at Christmas or around the holidays. Is there a place that's not dissociative, that isn't just dissociating from your body? Is there a place that's yogic? And the answer is yes, indeed, right? Sit up straight and stall, try to start to feel more rather than less. As you get in more alignment, like what sensations are you accessing? What, getting back to Melinda's newness, when you quiet down instead of just thinking about it in terms of your mind, stop defining everything in terms of your mind. What energy are you opening up to in your nervous system and allowing more to make it to your mind when you're quieting down? Is the quiet actually empty? Are you sure? I'm pretty sure that I'm not sure about that anymore, right? That I don't think the quiet's empty. So feel your feet on the floor, your rear end on the seat. I'm leaning forward today to center because I can tell I want more grounding, right? So I'm doing a little different today. You do it however you need to, like what you do to center. The problem with leaning forward is then my neck and my head is hanging heavy, so my neck is a little bit clenched. So so I'm gripping a little bit. So this will probably be temporary part of my centering. I will lean back in a second,
Okay.
right? But the grounding's more important. Karen, I think your sound's on. Um
What's on?
yeah, it is on, Karen. All right, so
Sorry about that.
no problem. So I'm taking a couple of grounded breaths. So maybe you try to find a couple of symmetry breaths, right? But you let the sensation be new. So then now that I've done that, I'm going to move back because I practiced enough to know when I need a little bit more grounding to start. So now I'm going to sit up straight and tall. I'm going to do what's more traditional centering. Pay attention to my exhale. Make sure I'm emptying. So to help me on that path, which isn't empty, right? I'm going to soften my temples, my forehead, my jaw, the inside of my mouth. Relax my belly to relax my throat. There's a spark of inhalation, but the emptiness is always the backdrop. I'm gonna find my midline. So I have to be aware of structure. So I'm gonna feel each sitting bone and each heel. Slightly hit down, but I'm plinking a pebble into the pond. I'm not throwing a rock. And I'm rising up. Then I'm making sure I'm broadening across my chest. Make sure I do it on the back body between my shoulder blades. But when I did the horizontal, did I steal from the vertical? Remember, non-stealing is part of the goal. Lips together, teeth slightly apart. If you want to bring your hands into prayer, bring your hands into prayer. If you can stay balanced, whatever that means. I'm keeping my hands on each above my knees, and like by touching my knees, I'm keeping my hands in prayer. It's more yogic for me today. Let go of your day. Let things be new. Feel full. Include your emptiness. Prepare your mind to do yoga. Please lift your sternum, activate your whole spine. As you lift your sternum, go down with your sitting bones. Lift the sternum up, the rib cage up, drop the shoulder blades. Then submerge by dropping your chin. So go under the rise and submerged on the back side of the rise as you drop your chin. So the energy that's coming up through your spine is still coming up, and you're submerging underneath it. Raise your head up with closed eyes. Open your eyes. So So there's just because there's a lot of ways to lift your chest and drop your chin. I'm also not on a tangent just for a second, right? And so there's the one where you lift your sternum, activate your spine, and then as if you're dropping your chin as a cap on top of it. You drop your chin. So try that one for a second, right? So you lift your sternum, right? And then you just like you're doing the very top of the pose, you submerge, but right? You do that. That's not what I just taught. It's different, right? And remember, you want all the spaces. You want all the spaces, right? So that's one way. And then release. Now let's go back to the one I just tried to instruct, which is slightly different. Now the question is, this level of such, you might not have even known that there are different ways to do all sorts of stuff, right? And remember, you want all the spaces. You want the honeymooner space, right? And then you'll learn as you do it, you'll learn how they're different, right? So on this one, you're going to lift. And then if you drop underneath, as you let this continue to rise, if you drop more underneath it, can you tell you'd have to take your chin back a little bit? And that's got a different quality to your spine. Can anyone kind of feel that a little bit? They're different. I'm not saying one's a lot better than the other, except which do you think might be better if you're going for a longer pranayama practice? The second one, the one where you're going underneath it, right? Because you want the emphasis to be the life force coming through your spine, and you want your head not to think that it's in charge. You're going to want to be more submerged into your spine. But you'll find there are all these tricks. All right, let's move around a little bit because I've been thinking about, I've been teaching kind of about the spine and what the sensation of yoga is. And I've said things the last couple of weeks about I've never taught anyone without a spine, right? Taught pretty much everything else. Taught limbs that aren't there, right? Have you ever thought about trying to teach a limb that isn't there? Yeah, it's intense. But you don't just teach the limb, you teach the spine and the fact that the spine's reaching for the limb even though the limb's not there, right? It's not that different. Remember in the last few classes, I've been teaching about having more than one sets of arms, right? Having arms go out this way even though they're in front of you. Right. So if we're revisiting one of those, so like sit up straight in time, putting my forearm, my elbows on my armrest, but you can put them on your lap. I'm hitting down, I'm rising up, I'm grounding through my forearms, and then I'm going to extend my arms into space, arms that are here that aren't there, right? When you do that, does anyone feel like they're more on balance? When you let yourself have more than one set of limbs? So the question is, can you have more than one set of arms in more than your mind? Can you have them grow out of your spine? Give it a try. Can you actually grow a set of arms out through the shoulders when they're in front of you without going up and down through your spine? I can't, right? So I have to go vertical and horizontal. And then when I'm growing more than one set of arms, which I'm not really growing more than one set of arms, but I kind of am. How am I doing it? This doesn't make sense, right? And then from there, I'm going to lift my sternum and drop my chin. So when you drop your chin, do your arms go out a little bit better? They do for me. How about you? What's going on? Prana follows consciousness more than it follows breath. And your consciousness that prana follows, this is a line just going to say because I like saying weird stuff. The consciousness that prana follows comes more out of your spine than it does out of your mind. Is he talking this kind of crap again? Yes, he is. Take your legs wide. So one of the and I'm moving around again, one of the focuses of this class, and so I really want to give you some advice today on this class. Don't try to overdo everything, right? Don't underdo, but don't overdo. Don't, cause just don't. It'll make you crabby. How do I know this? Because I've overdone what I'm about to try to communicate, right? I know this from experience. So now I'm leaning one way. I'm trying to get there to be more space, a feeling of space, because I don't know, I sit a lot, right? So I'm feeling more space between my spine and my hip flexor, my spine and my hip, not just the flexor. Like, so I'm pushing down and I'm lifting up. And now that lightens the feeling of sensation in that leg. So I'm going to go, wait, I can't feel my leg. What am I talking about? What am I talking about? Right? And I'm going to do it the other way. And I don't get as much mileage out of going this way. I'm not sure why, right? Somehow my left doesn't hear it the same, right? So I'm pushing down and lifting up, right? And I'm going to bounce a little bit here because I'm trying to shake it up a little bit because I want it to kind of be alive. And I kind of like that because when I shake it a little bit, I start to feel my lower abdomen, very, very low abdomen, the very, very base of my spine differently, which is also one of the beginning places of bandhas. But let's not talk about that, right? And then go up again, and I'm doing it this way, and I'm doing it this way. I'm trying to get this sense of space. So then I'm going to bring my legs together, and I want you to do a version of dog pose. I'm going to choose, if you have a table in front of you, I do it on the table. You can do it on your legs though. And so, but like there's an instruction that an adjustment in down facing dog, you know, you're like this, where someone comes up and maybe they use a belt, maybe they pull on the outside of your hips, but they lengthen, they pull your hips back. And then so that lengthens your very low abdomen. And what that does, a more advanced practitioner has to figure out then how to catch that with their muscles, right? Okay, so I want you to like do dog pose. And instead of just, so I can usually I tell you to do two things. I tell you to hit down with your sitting bones. And when I really want to get this energy going, I tell you to spread across your very low sacrum, your very low back, right? And that's an instruction to repeat, kind of to imitate getting your hips pulled back on, right? So, but rather than it being so active, I want you to do your version of dog pose, hit down, and then just try to think about having a force pulling you back away from your hands. So make there be more space. Use the space we just made in each hip. Make there be more space there and breathe into it. Good. And then release. So more, this could be a theme for a year, right? And this is why I'm telling you not to overdo it. So this class, and I've already kind of started it, but I'm trying to get the relationship between the diaphragm and the spine, right? So one of the ways that all of us are able to do seated standing poses is because there's a way of activating without gripping. This way, I don't want you to overdo it. There's a way of activating your diaphragm, and not just this one in right. It's thought that there's a diaphragm around your very low abdominal, across your very low abdominal, underneath the collarbones, and then the one you think here, right? So there's a way of kind of activating and what we just been doing is making space along the very low abdomen, the very low part of the diaphragm, right? So now thinking about the three different places, the crease at where your femur bone hits your torso, across your midline here and here, just move back and forth, but try to be aware of all three places, right? As you're moving back and forth, right? So you're watching three different levels of your spine, right? As you're doing this. Okay, so here's when we would talk about balance as a sensation in the trainings, we would talk about it instead of it being an accomplishment like a teeter-totter, we would talk about it in terms of equal distribution of presence. So that might be a sense of wholeness, but an equal distribution of presence within your body as balance, which would be a way for someone who is out of alignment to feel balanced, right? So the line that I've been holding back, and I'm rocking around again because we need to keep moving a little bit, is that the intersection of the physiological body, the physical body, and the subtle body or energy body occurs at the diaphragm, Bikasangar, right? Now, I've already told you that don't just think about this is the one that has the most active part, that part of your diaphragm, but think about it underneath here and underneath here too, right? That this is like one of the ways to touch into a different world, right? So what we're trying to do is get the sensation in your spine and the sensation and directional ability of your diaphragm to sync up so you can feel your whole body, so you can have an equal distribution of presence, so you can be into a form of balance. All right. So as we lift up and put our spine in traction, I usually talk about this in terms of bone. As you lift up and get some of the compression off of your spine, broaden across your sacrum, lift under the collarbone. Make a connection between the middle part of your diaphragm and your heels. Let me say it again. Broaden across your sacrum. Be aware of your hip flexors. Lift under the collarbones. It's the other part of the diaphragm. And make a connection between the middle part of your diaphragm and your heels. Breathe. Good, and then release. So remember, I'm telling you not to overdo it. Not to try to reach with your diaphragm too hard, right? I'm going to do it again. I had one hand on a wheel, one hand on my footrest, and we're doing it again because I need to do the other side too, right? So now I've got my left hand on my footrest and my right hand on my wheel. I had it the opposite. So I'm trying to make sure I do it symmetrically because that's going to affect my diaphragm, right? So now again, I'm leaning forward. I'm spreading across the lower part of the diaphragm. I'm spreading across the sacrum. I'm lifting under the collarbones, and I'm making an inward connection from the middle part of my diaphragm to my heels. Good, and then release. I'm just conjoining them. I'm not pointing them, right? So I don't know about you, but when I'm in the middle of an action and I try to make that inward connection between the middle part of my diaphragm and my heels, I had to do it from the back of my eyes. What? I have no idea. Good luck with that kind of weird stuff, right? Try it again. Except now I'm going to be more equal. I'm going to lean forward. Remember, when I engage my breath, my diaphragm, and know where my spine is. So I'm not doing it on the outside as much now. I'm actually conjoining the subtle world and the physical world and breathing. Good. And then release. So is anyone beginning to feel kind of an inward hum in their body a little bit? Yes, no, maybe so. Equal distribution of presence, right? BK Sangar wasn't lying about the intersection. A lot of the method that I have in the MBS method is based on insights that Abhika Sangar has as the subtle body. The thing is you can overdo the diaphragm, right? And I keep warning you against it because it's not a good thing, right? So take your legs wide. So remember, I want to do one more thing. No, let me do one more thing. Put your legs together, right? So one of the ways that we would, in the trainings, remember this is like the yoga teachers. So this is a little bit, see, I've already overdone my diaphragm a little bit. So I'm having to catch my breath a little bit, I can tell, because it's hard to do this and talk. Okay, so is that we would do this. We would have them sit in simple cross legs, but we'd sit in a chair is fine. And we talk about rings, right? Bands. So let there be a band around your very low abdomen, right above where your right around where your hip flexors is. And then another band around this part, right? And then another band around this part. And then another band just above the top of your head. So draw a circle around my low abdomen, middle spine, around my collarbones, to the top of my head, a little bit above my head. Stack the bands. Stack the bands. Okay. Now we're going to activate and then release. We're going to do the same thing, but this time we're going to activate a little bit. Okay, so you got the very low abdominal band, the one around the middle, under the collarbones, top, but as you find the bottom one, just squeeze it a little bit. The very low abdomen, very low, diaphragm. But stack the bands with a little bit of pressure on the low one. Now notice how that affects your inhalation. Good, and then release. So now we would go to these people in training. We'd go, now lean over off to the side. So I'm coming over, and this is like, I've been teaching you this in triangle pose, Trikonasana over and over again, right? So I'm leaning over onto my forearm, right? But now draw the band, the lower band, the middle band, the band at the top of the head. As you're leaned over in an off-balanced position, grip slightly the lower abdomen and stack the bands. Good, and then release. Does anyone get a pulsing through their whole body? Just a little bit? Go the other way, right? So there are ways to have your spine know the sensation of equal distribution of presence while you're out of alignment. It has to do with your spine and your diaphragm, right? So you're leaning this way, your lower abdomen, middle, collarbone, and I really find it's helpful above the top of my head. Gently squeeze the bottom one, stack the bands. Can anyone feel Trikonasana coming? Right? When you stack them, I can feel my legs better. Good, and then release. So now I got to let my diaphragm relax a little bit. I can tell. Right? So we're going to sit for a second. So thumbs up if this is kind of making sense. I've already lost one student, so it's kind of, right? So now I'm just going to sit here. I'm going to put my forearms on the table. So got my forearms down, right? So just so you know, because I've done so much weird stuff, got my forearms on the table. I'm clasping my hands. I'm stacking the bands. I'm letting there be reference on the top of my head, right above the top of my head. Don't tell anyone, but I'm sneaking into Shirsasana right now. Headstand. Or not. I could just be centering. Good. And then release. So another kind of weird thing. We've been stacking the bands as if we're putting rings kind of around our spine to find our diaphragm. Good. That's good instruction. I want you to do something that's a little bit more still inward, but a little bit more on the outside. Remember, prana follows consciousness more than it follows breath. Consciousness isn't just centered in your mind or in your brain. I think it's centered more in your spine, and I think that's what yoga and asana is trying to reveal, right? So keep that going in the background of your head, right? So now I want you to stack the bands again. Sit up straight and tall. Stack the one around your low abdomen, middle, whatever. Now I want you to do something like one step towards the outer body while still being inner, right? I want you to, as you're stacking the bands, try to feel the inner circumference of your rib cage. So you're stacking the bands. And then instead of feeling the outside of your rib cage where the diaphragm wants to lead you there, try to feel the inner circumference of your rib cage. Good. And then release. Is anyone able to, when I said inner circumference, did it make you engage a little differently? You might not have known that the way you're doing it before, but did it make you engage a little differently? Anybody? The inner circumference? It's okay if it's the answer is the answer no. Susan's got okay. So when I try to feel the inner circumference of my rib cage, rather than stacking the bands, it's easier for me to be soft in my mouth. Lips together, teeth slightly apart. Right? So try it again. Just because I can get kind of, when I squeeze the bottom one, I can kind of get my will going, right? And if I stack the bands, feel the different parts of my diaphragm, but I feel the whole circumference of my rib cage, but on the inside, something else happens. And I'm more likely going to want to breathe through my nose rather than my mouth. Good, and then release. These are things for you to practice. You may find that what's happening to me is not the same as what's happening to you, right? Remember, we're trying to figure out how to have an equal distribution of presence. So start to move around again. So there's one of the reasons why we do this and move around a little bit at the beginning of every class is kind of to shake it out, so you do get a version of equal to distribution of presence, right? Right? You're moving your spine, but you're also moving the different parts of your diaphragm, right? You're doing a whole bunch of stuff, right? And you're getting, so what we're trying to do is figure out, remember, this inner corridor, the different diaphragms are also part of what happens in bandhas. And some people think that you can teach all asana just from doing certain bandhas. Take your legs wide. Remember, we're trying to do a little bit of, we're heading towards, remember, we're thinking about the diaphragm and the spine. So I've been stacking the bands, but feeling it on our midline. The bands are around the midline, right? So we're already talking about the intersection of the diaphragm with the spine. So I'm going to try to get really grounded here. Now my legs are wide, my elbows are on my armrest. They could be however they are. I just like the reference there. And without doing it as actively, I'm going to stack the bands. Notice that though, I'm not telling you to squeeze the lower abdomen as much, right? Just stack the bands. But allow that instead of stacking the abdomen here, you're even down lower. You're down between your sitting bones. And you're aligning up that way. And as you do, with a downshift, extend through your heels, but from your diaphragms. So allow that energy can go down as you're rising up. This is part of the energy runway, multiple lane street that Tadasana is teaching you. We've done it a lot. It's just harder to do it with your legs wide. Take a breath, all right? So remember, we tried to make this space now, right? So I'm pushing down when we're doing it before. I'm pushing down on my leg. I'm lifting up here. But I'm trying to stack the bands, right? Change gravity as I stack the bands, broadening across my sacrum, broadening. And I always say between my shoulder blades, but I'm trying to get you to get that upper diaphragm to lift under your collarbones. Now, as I lean over, I'm going to point to my heel as I'm pushing down with this part of my diaphragm pushing this way as I'm gripping here and opening here. Take a couple of breaths. Good, and then release. Now, I don't say reach with your diaphragm, I say point with your diaphragm, right? It's different. I'm going to go this way. Again, I hit down here with my forearm under my leg, right? I get the activation up. I hit down here. So I'm making space here in my between my femur bones and my hips, right? and I'm lifting up through my spine. We've done this a lot, right? But now we're adding an awareness of the three levels of the diaphragm, right? So I'm going to try to stack the bands. I'm going to keep this connection to this connection to lengthen my spine. Remember, I'm reaching beyond the top of my head. And then to get down through the back leg, right? I'm extending down through my heel and I'm pointing to it from this part of my diaphragm. And I'm going to breathe. And then release. Going to take a couple of, I'm going to move back and forth because there's the one thing about you don't want to get you want to keep your diaphragm limber in relationship to your spine. You don't want to lock it down, right? So when we did that triangle pose, right? And we did all of it except for the arms, right? Some of you might have naturally been extending out through your arms anyway. But when you start to realize that the upper arm in a second, when we do it in triangle pose, is just an extension of this diaphragm, the one up here, right? But when it goes, we're not doing it all the way yet, but when it goes, when your arm goes up, I want you to hear this part of your diaphragm. I want you to see how they're actually connected, right? All right, so here we're going to go over. We're going to go down. We're going to rise up. We're going to get, I'm still stacking the bands, broadening across my collarbones. And then this is just a natural extension of energy that was already moving out of my spine. It's a fulfillment of what was already happening. But remember, the midline of the spine is the core where the source is. The diaphragm points the subtle body, and the breath expands it. And then the exhalation brings the muscle towards the bone. Good, and then release. So I'm being telling you to not overdo your diaphragm and not use your will too much. If you're gritting your teeth at all, don't. If you're holding hard on the inside of your mouth, don't. It doesn't feel good. You're forgetting the sensation of yoga. Your mind's overdoing trying to control prana, right? So you're going this way. Remember, the diaphragm is connected to this body, the subtle body that we don't quite get to have as tangibly, right? So I'm pushing down, rising up. I'm stacking the bands, right? And I'm knowing that this energy, right? I'm going to go up like this with the upper one, but I'm going to make sure my mid part of my diaphragm is pointing to my back heel as I extend my spine and stack the bands beyond the top of my head. Does anyone know when you open your back body, it's easier to stack the bands? Yeah. Good. And then come on back in the center. I'm putting my hands on my footrest because I need to like ground here. Because diaphragmatic work, pranic diaphragm in conjunction with spine is pretty taxing. So I'm going to honor it. But I'm not going to get too serious about it. I'm going to do a little back bending here. Little Pasarda Pada Tadasana. Right? But a gentle one. Good. And then come back to the middle. Be in the middle. Got to see what time it is. Good. Did you not work hard enough in this class? You guys wish it was harder? So I'm going to come back home to Tadasana, right? I'm going to go, whoop, I better find it. Whoop, here we go. Whoop, here we go. So I'm bringing my knees together. So this energy, right? And I'm not gonna grab the lower abdomen diaphragm, right? But I'm gonna watch them stack as I bring my knees together, right? And I'm gonna call this as I get my femur bones more in line with my hips so my spine can be nourished. I'm gonna call this nourishment. And I'll keep my lips together, teeth slightly apart. Breathe through my nose if I can. Feel each sitting bone. So as you're sitting like this, release for a second. So you know how when you try to do instructions, when you're listening to them and then you're trying to do them, it tends to be centered more in your mind. Like, okay, now I'm going to feel this, I'm going to feel that, and I'm going to push this way, I'm going to push that way, and it kind of centered more up here, right? So in this, like doing a nourishing Tadasana, I want you to do it the feelings and the instructions from your diaphragm without activating your diaphragm, right? So instead of like trying to go, okay, I'm going to feel my heels now, right? From up here, I want you to do it from your spine, from the way that you were just moving on the inside of your body. So again, sit up straight and tall, get centered, find whatever version of Tadasana you have without too much strain, because we're trying to have the energy come back to the midline. Right now, if I roll my thighs out, I can get my mind centered, but we're trying to get the energy of the diaphragm to come back to the midline more, right? So I'm bringing my legs together more, right? So I'm trying to get this alignment. I'm receiving it. See, I just all of a sudden naturally started to lift my sternum and drop my chin because I know how to respond to this energy, right? But I'm gonna try to, like, when I make a connection to my heels, to my sitting bones, to here, right? I'm gonna do it. I'm feeling my spine and letting my spine and diaphragm, not my intention, be in more of my body. And I naturally lift my sternum and drop my chin. Maybe you're feeling the same thing. So I'm starting the process of honoring and getting in the body position that honors the prana flowing through my spine and from the less tangible world, from my diaphragm into my spine. Breathe through each nostril, feel it into each lung. So we're not doing Shavasana yet. We're creating a structure. Now see if there's in some level where you can't feel the hum from the fatigue in the class, but instead of it being diffusing, see if it lights you any differently. And whatever that is, breathe into it. Good, and then release. There's a lot of ways to honor prana, right? And at the end of the day, the prana writes the poses, right? And you're trying to figure out asana, and the instructions are trying to follow it. So it's not just your spine that's expressing out through your limbs. It's the 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 spine's got it more solid. The diaphragm is the go-between the breath and the lungs, between the breath and the spine. And so everything is moving, right? When you're moving your limbs. So now we're going to do Shavasana, right? So we got to like get the symmetry and really surrender into your chair, right? Like, oh. So you're really leaning against the back of your chair right now because you really want to get, so your diaphragm, especially this part of your diaphragm, the middle part, feels supported. Like when you get in bed tonight, or if you get in bed and take a nap later today, really try to land on your back so your diaphragm can get supported. Feel the inner circumference of your rib cage. Feel your feet on the floor of the foot pedals. Now go to the center of your ankles, your knees, your hips, your shoulders, your elbows, your wrists, even your fingers, your joints. Even let go of your teeth. Feel your breath. Don't change it. Thank your body. Thank it again. Start to bring yourself back. I would do Shavasana again later in the day. Slightly deeper inhalation, slightly longer exhalation. When you're ready, open your eyes, let the light in. Namaste. Spirit in me bows the spirit in you. Remember, this Wednesday is Yoga Disability and Transformation, and we're having a best-selling author on muscle, right? Her book is On Muscle, what moves us and why it matters. I just finished it yesterday. So we'll have discussions and hopefully you've seen some of the things. It'd be great to have a good turnout for Bonnie Joy. Um, so it's very cool. And there's actually in reading the entire book, there's a little bit more on mind body solutions than I expected, actually. It's got a little bit more in it. She came and visited last June, I think, or maybe it was 2 years ago, and hung out. We hung out for like 36 hours, and she asked me a lot of questions, right? A lot of stuff. And Molly and I taught her yoga. So, um, all right. I will stay on for any after comments. Um, and that, the relationship between your diaphragm and your movements and your spine. Be gentle on your diaphragm. Remember when Bika Sengar says it touches the other world, it does. Honor it, right? Okay. Be well, everybody.